If you work for the Catholic Church and want to transform the culture of your parish, put more souls in the pews, we're here to help. I'm Ty Hua, here with my co-host John Kahns, and this is the Catholic Ministry Professionals Podcast, the leadership development podcast for Catholic churches. Today, we're discussing how to align parish resources to support growth. John, how are you?
Hey, it's a good day here. We just coming off the 4th of July weekend. I'm feeling refreshed and ready to rock. How about yourself?
God bless America.
God bless America and our American Pope.
Yes.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about aligning parish resources. Obviously, one of the biggest challenges that I think parishes face is those misaligned resources, which does result in overburdened staff, scattered efforts, and missed opportunities for growth. So many parishes are overwhelmed simply because their resources are spread too thin across too many tasks with no clear vision guiding them. And so in this episode, we'll identify that root cause of this issue, which is that lack of focus and the strategic allocation of resources. We're going to show you how to simplify your approach, prioritize the most impactful initiatives, and align your sources effectively so your parish can move forward with purpose and with momentum so that we can all build a better parish together. And so, even though many of our parishes struggle because they're not focused on growth, they're focused more on maintaining the mission. This is going to become really simple for us to really get buckled down and look at what do we need to do to move past this frustration and into renewal. And like so many things we talk about on the podcast, Ty, this is going to be a result of a lack of clear vision and direction, right? And again, this always leads to overwhelm. It always leads to frustration. So we need to intentionally align our resources behind a clear vision. And we've done so many episodes on that. I encourage our listeners, if you're new, to go back and listen to some of our episodes on establishing vision, leading with vision. But the biggest problem is that this lack of vision, this lack of alignment leads to burnout for our staff, for our volunteers. This leads to grumpy Ethel in the front office, turning people away from the parish instead of embracing them with the parish. And so we want to just offer a little support, a little structure, a little guidance here. And I promise if you listen to this episode, you'll have a little clearer idea of how you can align your resources. Now, it's probably worth saying too, when I say resources, I mean everything. The time that you have, the people that you have, the budget that you have, aligning all of that behind the mission of the parish, ensuring that everything we do supports not just the maintenance, not just the survival, but the growth, the flourishing of your parish. And by taking just like a simple approach, one goal at a time, we're going to kind of guide you through a process of creating clear priorities, creating better parish resource allocation, and just intentionally focusing on growth. And that's the series that we're on right now, is how do we not just maintain the church, but how do we grow the church? How do we fight against some of the stats that are out there about the attrition rate of the church? How do we fight against those? And in the process of doing so, we're going to reduce overwhelm. We're going to help us ensure more sustainable growth and give our teams the clarity and support that they need to have that lasting impact in the community that the church is meant to be. How's that sound, Ty?
Let's do it.
All right, a key scripture verse for us today. This is Proverbs 21, verse 5, and it says, everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. And this highlights the importance of thoughtful planning and intentional action, all aimed at fulfilling a particular goal, ultimately bringing God's vision for your parish to fruition. So without a clear plan, it can be easy to scatter our resources and our effort, and that results in a very minimal impact. But when we take a little more attention and intention to align our resources behind a vision and intentional goals, we're going to see abundance and a more thriving parish. We're going to see growth. And when we do that, it feeds our souls. It helps us it's really in the sharing of that fruit and the experiencing of that fruit that we are nourished, that we are fed, and we are given the strength for another day. And so we want to really plan with intention. And we really want to take some time now to sit back and think about what do we need to do to make our parish move, to help our parish move from maybe more frustrated effort into renewal and growth. So we got three things again today for you, as we do every week. Three things to consider when you are looking to align your parish resources. And this is where you're kind of buckling down. You're looking at what you have and you're trying to build a plan out of it. And the first thing is to know where you are now. You need to do an audit of your resources. Before making any changes, before coming up with some big plan, it's important to sit down and just look at what do we have on hand? Where do we currently stand? And this includes looking at the people. What are the demographics of your parish? If you've got mostly blue hairs in your parish, it's going to mean something different from if you have mostly young families, young adults with young families. It's going to mean something different from a parish that's pretty evenly split between maybe an English speaking population and a Spanish speaking population, right? That means something different to you, but you have to know what's truly there before you make a plan to feed those people. Same with your finances. Look at your finances, look at your budget. How are things allocated? Do you need to advocate for some moving of the finances there to open up opportunities for you? Look at your ministries. What ministries are we offering? We have mostly families that are older, like blue hairs. You're probably not going to need to put as much time into the faith formation component of youth, right? Sacramental prep. On the other hand, if you've got majority young families with young kids, you're going to have to spend a lot of time in that area. And that doesn't mean you ignore the other one, but how are we allocating our time in terms of who we actually have here? And then also looking at just active versus inactive members. Sometimes it looks good on paper to bloat our statistics to say, wow, we have 800 families in our parish. But if only 150 of them are active members, that means something for you. And it's worth being honest with yourself and realistic about that so that you can get more clarity on the resources you currently have and where you need to focus your efforts, but also where you don't have resources and maybe you need to think about building specifically in that direction. And with this information, you can make informed decisions about how to prioritize the next steps for your ministry, for your parish, and for your work. Ty, how does that work in the sales world?
Well, if you don't, it doesn't work.
Say more about that.
I'll say it by giving you an example. So for the listeners out there that don't know my background, I started in car sales, right? Like went to tech school to learn how to fix cars and diesel trucks. Graduated early, mind you, because I actually didn't want to do that. Like 2 months in, I'm like, this sucks. Like I love working on cars. I hate fixing other people's cars. But I'm not one to quit. So I ended up doing double time, morning and evening classes to finish tech school. Finished, and I'm like, well, I got to get a job now. So I'm going to go to the local Chevy dealership to, start out as what they would call it. It's a term of endearment, grease monkey, which means you start fixing cars by changing the oil, and then slowly but surely over time, they give you more and more difficult tasks that book out to being more money. And I went to apply and I got hired on as a salesperson. Well, I was very fortunate to get hired with a really great sales manager by the name of Jim Lutmer from Adrian, Minnesota. Shout out Adrian,
Jim.
Minnesota. And he flat out showed me how to sell. He laid out the sales plan, if you would. And I've seen a lot of other salespeople that start out that don't have that same plan. And what happens, John, is that they sit at their table, their desk, waiting for people to show up. And, the vast majority of the time, another salesperson is going to swoop up that person before they even get to the new salesperson that's sitting at the desk. So they have no opportunity to do whatever they want to do because that opportunity is already gone to a salesperson that has that game plan already. Okay, when they come in, here's how I'm going to greet them. Here are the questions that I'm going to ask. Here are the different routes that I'm going to take them on a test drive. Well, let's just say for the purposes of this example that salesperson has the opportunity to talk to a living, breathing, in real life customer. They have no idea what to do with it anyways. So it reminds me of the parable of the talents, right? Like to the one that's given much is expected. Well, if you don't plan out your ministries, if you don't budget, if you don't do the things that are necessary to provide for a good environment for that plan to come to fruition, you're not going to have a very good plan. If you look at like Luke 14:28 says, for which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it. That's regarding, in my opinion, especially for this example, not just money, but who are your volunteers? Do you have enough? Do you have the resources available to you to be able to make this ministry a success? Or are you going to become calloused to this idea that every time I start a ministry or I start something, it never works out right? Well, why? You didn't have the proper vision. You didn't first sit down and count the cost. You didn't plan out exactly what you should be doing. So in that example with the salesperson, I have two nephews that I got into car sales because they, not that it's the, profession for the lost, car sales, but it is a good way to build your skill set in understanding what people's needs are, asking the right questions, and then connecting them to a solution. I mean, that's literally what we do in ministry. That's literally what any good business does, is they find out what you are struggling with by asking the right questions and then connect you with hopefully a proper solution. So it's a really good profession to cut your teeth in, just understanding like how to talk to people. And I think that's where we're missing out as far as ministry. There's this disconnect between, we have this lost soul, we've got the gospel, and I'll just kind of pair them up. Well, that's not necessarily how that is going to, work as far as connecting those two. You got to be able to talk. You got to be able to kind of position those goals in that vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really is the second piece of our conversation today, creating numeric goals based on our current numbers. So we do a really solid review. We try to take a look at and do an audit of our parish and the actual physical numbers. And then you can set goals based on that. And I think that this is where the disconnect happens for a lot of Catholic ministry professionals, because we're not just a business, but then we tend to go the opposite direction, just say, Lord, whatever you bring me today is great. And that is evangelization, right? God might bring someone in that day to talk to you. But if we look at the lives of the apostles, they didn't just wait around for people to approach them. The majority of the story is them going out to get people. And what does that look like for us today as like static parishes built in specific communities and stuff? Is that we need to set a plan. And that plan that has to be based off of real numbers to intentionally drive us toward so based on your audit, you need to create those really specific measurable goals for growth. And what that might look like is maybe you have 100 active parishioners. So you set yourself a goal, you want to increase that by 15 to 20% in the next year. And if that means something, right? Because Ty, then if you, as a car salesman, let's say you sold 3 cars, right? Your first month. But you go, well, the paycheck I got now, like I'm glad I'm getting paid, but I need more to take care of my family. So, well, instead of, I sold 3 cars this month, but I want to sell 10 cars next month or whatever. I don't know what a realistic number is as you're starting that. How do you sit down and you start looking at setting that goal and building that plan? What's the Jim Lutmer way?
Great question. I think sales is a numbers game. Like it sounds cliche. It sounds, to me, I kind of get the ick when I hear that, but it's true. In that example you gave, you sold 3 cars. The other question should be, how many ups did you get or leads did you get? How many people did you walk up to talk, to be able to sell those 3 cars? If you only talk to 10 people, I mean, you get a 30% close rate, right? So if you want to sell 10 cars without changing any other skill set, meaning, hey, I did not get any better with the test drive, with the numbers presentation, none of that. I didn't improve, but I have the same close rate. If I have a 30% close rate and I want to sell 10 cars, well, I got to talk to at least 30 people, right? So it's just a numbers game. Now, if you wanted to increase it and you want to talk to less people, well, you got to get better at closing. You got to get better at presenting numbers. You got to get better at the test drive. You got to get better at the trade appraisal. All of those different skill sets we can improve on. But if you just wanted to get to what you're talking about as far as having those specific goals, well, you got to have more than just the end result, right? What we would call the lag measures. You got to have some really good lead measures. What are the numbers that I got to hit to get the numbers that I want coming out of that pipeline, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, this is a really good allusion to evangelization and discipleship. And somebody that I think does this really well, has this conversation really well, Jeff Cavins, right? It's no different than when he tells you, you got to have a few questions in your back pocket that are your lead in to evangelize the people you're standing in line with at the coffee shop or at the grocery store, and he's developed a bunch of one-liners, and this is the same idea. Again, what's the close? What's the approach? What are your kind of go-tos? And he does, I forget what he calls it, but it's like tattoo evangelization. See somebody with a tattoo, he just goes, what's that tattoo about? And then because he has a level of mastery of the faith, he can always bring it around to, oh, wow, that's a great story. It reminds me of blank thing that Jesus says in the Gospels, or it reminds me of this story from the Old Testament, or it reminds me of this time in my life when I was struggling with this, and Jesus was the answer. And he can always draw the conversation back to that. So that's like the soft skills versus the hard skills versus just the practical approach. Those are all pieces of the same puzzle. And the reality is, again, if you want to grow your parish, which will renew it, right? It'll bring that fresh blood, and you got to be comfortable. Okay, well, maybe I can't overhaul my entire program, but is there some different way I can structure my day so I'm going out and encountering new people? Or anytime someone comes into the office, I'm going to make it a point to go up and say hi to them and have that conversation, because that at least is putting me in contact with one other person. I can think of a time that I did this poorly, and there's plenty of times I missed the boat on this. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and it was a new friend, new in town, and I asked him if he had found a church, and he said yes. And it was the Bible church down the road, not our Catholic church. And instead of saying, well, have you considered, All Saints Parish? I just said, oh, you know what? That looks like a nice church. 100%, just a missed opportunity. Didn't even pop into my head. So some of it's like building your own awareness, even that there are opportunities that we're missing. But so this is all, once we get down and do the audit, and then we can see where the numbers are, we can start playing around with, well, what do I want it to be? How can I get better at this one thing and grow myself professionally so that those numeric goals that we can start working on those, put in place, like you said, Ty, the lead measures that will help us to improve those leg measures on the other side when it comes around to next year or the opening of the next RCIA formation opportunity, whatever it might be. But either way, the goals, they need to be realistic. They need to be aligned with your current resources. You can't do something that you don't have the resources to do. So start with achievable targets and then expand from there. And then from there, I think that leads naturally into our third part, which we talked about a little bit, which is that you can make a list of conversations, make a list of the tasks, the processes that need to change in order for you to hit those numeric goals. Because once you've set the goals, you can reverse engineer what success will look like and identify the necessary conversations that you need to have with staff, with volunteers, with parishioners, the skills that you need to build and develop in order to be able to go out to the grocery store, whatever it is. And as you're out there, you're also doing the work of evangelization and discipleship that can help you to grow your parish.
One thing I want to say, John, when I read make a list of conversations, tasks, and process changes needed, that would fit nicely into a PRM, our parishioner relationship management tool. We don't have one. I really think it would be beneficial if CMP actually built one for parishes to use. But that's exactly what we're talking about here. And we've talked about it previously about, hey, reach out to X amount of parishioners every single week or month or whatever. Have a committee of people that has their lists of people that they touch base with according to their demographic. I'm a soon to be 38-year-old husband. excuse me, 38. I am a husband, but soon to be 38-year-old. I want to be able to reach out to the husbands in that same demographic. I'm not going to call the 75-year-old, retirees that, all their kids are grown and they've got their own kids. I want to call my people because I can relate to them. I can understand the different times that work for them, the different times that doesn't work for them. I'm at speaking to the people that I relate to. So I think having a really good parishioner relationship management tool, which hopefully we can put something together on an episode, John, to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you can just talk about your experiences working within that PRM tool.
Yeah, so I did that for Catholic ministry professionals, and it's been amazing to me how much the space it frees up in my brain because you're trying to remember 100 things at one time. Oh, I got to reach out to this person, have this conversation. I remember to create this PDF for this podcast episode that we did, and there's so many moving pieces. And what the PRM is, the customer relationship management, the parishioner relationship management system is it allows you to free up that space by making it predictable, by making it manageable, and also by building it in a way that it's a system that runs for you. Not that it becomes another burdensome thing that you have to track, but it can run for you. And what I see as I'm doing this is if we expand the team here at Catholic Ministry Professionals, what I now have here is built out a system that when I plug somebody into it, I know that it's going to create, these 4 or 5 tasks that I need to take action on. One is to reach out to the person, another is to put them in the system in XYZ way. And then it also is going to remind me just to reach out to people if you're in our system, I'm going to reach out to you every 120 days is what I've got it set up for. And what that does is it just allows me to remember, like, I need to touch base with these people. These people are important. The relationship is important to me. And so it allows you to really track those in a sustainable way that doesn't burn you out because you can set it to whatever rhythm makes the most sense, but also keeps people from falling through the cracks that are important to you, that are important to your ministry, ultimately are important to the heart of Christ. And we want to do I really think it allows you to honor that in a way that is current, that is, for our 21st century life, but also honors the gospel command that we have to go and make disciples.
Yeah, what I like about it is that, we talk about budgeting as far as like capital, right? Like how much
Mhm.
money can we put towards this ministry? But the one thing is like every parish, John, correct me if I'm wrong, has a lack of human capital as far as volunteers. That's why you've got the 3 or 4 people in your parish. And as I'm saying this, you probably have them in mind. They're part of every committee. They do everything within the church, whether that's opening it up, turning on the lights, cleaning before and after an event. And sometimes it's their money that they put towards it too. So having a PRM, like we're talking about, as you cultivate these relationships, you can see where these people's hearts are. Maybe their hearts aren't within the ministry of OCIA. Maybe it's part of the renewal of the adoration worship of the Eucharist. Maybe they want to be a part of the adoration team. So we don't know that unless we actually reach out and have a conversation with them and cultivate that. It's like, you know what? You have that desire. 5 other people have that desire. Would you be open to being a part of this committee and we will run this, or I'll help. We'll kind of put it together and you guys can run it. Well, you don't know that unless you have those conversations. And that's where having something like a PRM in place is very crucial to this, this conversation about planning things out and making that list, the tasks, and all these different processes. It just makes it easier.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing too is, like I said, bringing someone onto the team at CMP, I'd be able to really easily hand them off these tasks or this section of it. And that's the value too, is for you as a Catholic ministry professional in the parish. Now you've got the system in place, so a volunteer signs up. The training's really simple. You just plug them into the system, and they're going to get automatic reminders of, hey, reach out to this person, and you can easily look and check and see, like, hey, did this person do this thing or not? Are they a good member of the volunteer team for this ministry? If not, well, maybe I need to have that conversation of there's a better place for them, or maybe I need to adjust my expectations. But again, it gives you kind of going back to those last couple points, it gives you the raw data you need to make very intentional choices to set measurable, realistic goals that are aimed at the growth and renewal of the parish. But yeah, most of the time we're just taking a stab in the dark. We're assuming what people think, what people are doing. But this gives you something real that you can track the growth, you can track the progress, you can make decisions based off of that information and leverage it forward. And so, yeah, I agree with you, Ty. I think we need to kind of take a little deeper look at this and how that might look to plug something like that into a parish and what that exact tool might be. If I were to take my prophetic voice and speak
Mm.
that out. And I think with that we can move on to the devil's advocate. Dun dun.
John, I've been just stuck in this cycle of maintaining for so long. I don't know if we have time. I don't know if we've got the resources to focus on making these big changes. And these are big changes. So I just, I don't think it's possible, especially with everything else going on in the parish. I've got way too much going on.
That's understandable. And I think especially when you're looking at this big picture stuff of intentionally growing the parish, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. And I think also one thing that we need to talk into is that we're probably a little bit afraid to take something big on and fail. And when you're already juggling multiple responsibilities, it's really can be really overwhelming. And so I just want to reverence that. I want to recognize that that is going to be the reality. However, this process and the beauty of what we're saying in that is that you want to keep it simple. And by keeping it simple, I mean, you just shine the light on it. Doing an audit isn't going to take you weeks and weeks and weeks, right? This is just an audit of your resources. Can you pull the numbers from Parish Soft or whatever parish management system you have? You can pull those from there. Can you sit down with your finance manager, whoever it is, and say, hey, can I just see the budget and where things are going? This is not a major effort. This is just an intentionality of taking stock of where you are with your people, your finances, your ministries. And once you can see the big picture, you can a little more clearly see like what needs the most attention and can we make simple manageable changes over time rather than overhauling everything. But you know, I, I do know that the temptation is once you start seeing those things and our desire, like that magnanimity of the spirit, that desire to do great things for the Lord can really like amp us up. And so we need prudence just to say, hey, how do I break this down into smaller, achievable steps? Because you don't need to solve everything at once. The key is to simply focus on what you can control within your areas. But in order to do that, you have to start with that small step of learning, right? Of just looking at what are the raw numbers, what is the data here that we have to make decisions based off of. Also, you can involve the team in the process. I don't think you should do this all on your own. And by getting everybody aligned around this, you're investing in the mission of the church and you'll create a sense of shared responsibility, accountability, plus other people are going to be experiencing fruit when they do this. And then they'll share that fruit with you. And that fruit, that's like fresh water flooding into your soul. Like that's from the Lord. And that is a good thing. And it gives you that inspiration, gives you that motivation. It gives you that refreshment of soul that you need to move forward into the next day of ministry. And I want to remind you too that we're here to help too with your support system through quarterly workshops. We can do monthly support calls. Like you don't have to do this alone, but you do have to reach out in order to work with us. So in order for us to speak into that, and discovery calls are free, right? We can hop on a discovery call with you tomorrow. If you send an email to john@catholicmenpros.com, go to catholicministryprofessionals.com, send us a message, right? We'll send you a link for a discovery call and the accountability that we're going to offer just ensures that you stay on track. And with the right tools, with the right guidance, asking those questions, like Ty said, asking those right questions, learning what to look for, right? Suddenly it starts to feel manageable. It starts to feel doable. And over time, these small little intentional changes, they can compound and that'll lead to exponential growth, without the stress of trying to do everything at once. You just do a little bit here and then investment in now, it reverberates down through time. It compounds over time. And so what I want to encourage us to do, of course, we never want to leave you without something that you can do to take action on our conversation today. is simply to schedule that discovery call. Visit CatholicMinistryProfessionals.com, send a message, and let us know that you're interested in a free discovery call. And I'll send you a link to sign up. And it's that easy. We'll hop on the phone at a time that works for you, and we'll start talking about building an actionable plan to align your resources to help you achieve growth in your parish. And with that, I want to thank you for listening to the Catholic Ministry Professionals podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please take a few seconds to text it to a priest or a friend in ministry that could benefit from it.
And with that, we'll see you in the vineyard.